SCP-2888. Again and again and again. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. The former residence of Marshall Ford Everett, in addition to the 8.3-acre parcel of land on which it is located, is currently held by Rural Heritage LLC, a Foundation-owned land trust company. All structures located on the parcel are to be allowed to deteriorate in a manner consistent with abandoned property. As all personal effects and human remains have been removed from the premises, no interference with civilians or local authorities is deemed necessary. The remains of all recovered SCP-2888 instances are to be maintained in a long-term storage and minimum security morgue 2A, located at Site 23. The Site 16 SIGINT office is to continually monitor California Department of Public Health newborn screening program data for genetic markers consistent with SCP-2888 manifestations. Any resumption of suspected SCP-2888 related phenomena is to be reported immediately to the Research Director. Description: SCP-2888 is a phenomenon documented to have occurred between the 15th of December 1957 and the 29th of July 1973, in which infants genetically identical to an individual known as Mildred Reckert, footnote 1, a woman documented by Sacramento law enforcement authorities to have died under suspicious circumstances in 1954, were repeatedly born in hospitals in the Central California region of the United States. A total of 38 births occurred in 19 separate facilities during this time, each to a different mother. Complete lack of evidence of invasive surgical procedures in subjects giving birth to SCP-2888 instances, combined with the rudimentary state of human cloning technology at the time, confirms SCP-2888 as an anomalous phenomenon. An investigation conducted in 1970, subsequent to a Site 16 analytical review of missing persons cases in Northern and Central California concerning a group of individuals sharing very similar physical characteristics, identified a Sacramento-based construction firm owner named Marshall Ford Everett as being closely associated with this phenomenon. Examination of materials recovered after the detainment of Mr. Everett confirmed this relationship. While the mechanism by which SCP-2888 occurs remains unknown, research at the time, combined with witness statements and other collected evidence, indicated that Mr. Everett at least partially influenced the commencement of 38 births of specimens genetically identical to Miss Reckert. Further investigation revealed that Mr. Everett was responsible for the original murder of Miss Reckert in 1954. In addition to the confirmed homicides of 31 out of 38 documented SCP-2888 instances over the next 17 years. Agents clandestinely observing Mr. Everett as part of research efforts to ascertain possible methods behind the SCP-2888 phenomenon documented the murder of Miss Vivian Enfield, an SCP-2888 instance, by Mr. Everett on June 17, 1971. This event led researchers to establish and confirm Mr. Everett's role in the disappearances of other SCP-2888 instances since 1957. Following this event, Foundation assets were mobilized under the guise of a California Highway Patrol task force to raid Mr. Everett's rural residence in Locke, California, and place him in custody in order to prevent further violence. 3 additional SCP-2888 instances were located in the Central California region over the next 2 years and placed in containment at Site 16. In each case, SCP-2888 instances in containment manifested numerous chronic and severe health conditions beginning soon after the age of 22. Footnote 2. Mildred Record was determined to be 22 years of age at the time of her death. And the last surviving specimen died in 1997 from complications related to a disorder similar to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Mr. Everett proved uncooperative with Foundation researchers while in containment, providing personnel with copious amounts of what was later determined to be unreliable information. Despite enhanced information gathering protocols being authorized in 1983, Mr. Everett ultimately yielded little in the way of usable data regarding SCP-2888. Mr. Everett was euthanized by medical staff while in Foundation custody in 1985 after displaying sudden debilitating neurological impairments related to the appearance of several malignant brain tumors. Addendum 2888-1 Notes on the Everett residence. Form 870-B Establishment of Secure Area. Previous site of anomalous activity. Cross-reference SCP-2888. Location 38.2506 degrees north, 121.5094 degrees west. Custodial Party Mobile Task Force Beta 88, Subunit C. Date of establishment 24th of June, 1971. Notes: Mobile Task Force resources using California Highway Patrol uniforms and equipment secured the residence of person of interest 2888A, Marshall Ford Everett, after that individual's entry into containment. Aside from the remains of 11 SCP-2888 instances, no anomalous items or phenomena were found. Human remains were removed from the premises, and all items within the residence cataloged and turned over to researchers. The Everett residence is a 4-bedroom, 2-story ranch-style house constructed in the early 20th century, located on a small parcel of land on the outskirts of Locke, California, United States. While the external appearance of the residence is typical of other structures in the immediate area, the interior has been heavily modified. Person of interest 2888A is believed to have designed and built features in the residence himself due to his experience in the construction trade. Modifications include the following: additional insulation material in all exterior walls, believed to be for soundproofing purposes. 8 recessed alcoves in the walls of the upstairs guest bedroom, concealed by paneling resembling walls in the rest of the house, accessible by hidden latches. 7 of these alcoves were found by Foundation personnel to contain the embalmed remains of SCP-2888 instances. A finished windowless basement, accessible by a hidden door in the kitchen, containing 4 sets of police-issue manacles and an extensive drainage system. Basement was soundproofed using the same material as the exterior walls. No lighting system was present. Speakers installed in the basement, connected to a reel-to-reel playback device. Device was modified to play on continuous loop a 3-minute 48-second recording. Footnote 3. Recording consists primarily of a woman sustained screaming and simultaneous dialogue by a second party, of which only the words, again and again and again, are intelligible. Analysis of this recording suggests that the woman's voice is Mariah Echeverria, an SCP-2888 instance believed by researchers to have been murdered in 1967. The second party is believed to be Mr. Everett. Device appears to have been left powered on at all times. A room located in place of a previously existing downstairs bathroom, fitted with metal paneling on all 4 walls capable of being electrified through a modified fuse box. A custom-designed incinerator located behind the residence. Footnote 4. Receipts recovered from a local masonry business indicated that a third-party contractor constructed the incinerator, while Mr. Everett apparently added an entry hatch capable of being locked from the outside. A recently completed room addition to the first floor, designed to 1969 California Building Standards Commission specifications for rural nurseries, containing 12 stainless steel, hospital-grade infant bassinets. A heavily reinforced exterior door built on the north wall of the structure's attic. Purpose unknown. All furnishings, personal items, appliances, and fixtures were removed by personnel and routed to appropriate research staff. The premises was inspected and certified in compliance with consensus reality expectations on the 23rd of June, 1971. Reviewers' comments. Recommendations by Mobile Task Force Beta 88 to classify premises as minimal security grade area approved. Include into data file that review by SCP-2888 research personnel indicates that all furnishings in the house recovered by Mobile Task Force Beta 88 were removed from the homes of SCP-2888 instances, presumably by Mr. Everett. Addendum 2888-2 Marshall Ford Everett Intake Documentation. Results of Initial Psychological Evaluation, Person of Interest 2888-A. Emerging trends regarding so-called serial killers in the medical literature have begun to, if not typify, at least lay the groundwork for identifying common traits in these individuals. Caution must always be exercised when dealing with small sample sizes, but there generally appears to be preliminary value in certain behavioral red flags in identifying this kind of aberrant behavior. Mr. Everett, however, displays none of the outward traits that mark a repeated murderer in his case history. Examination of school and medical records indicate no mental abnormalities, nor do records kept by the United States Army note any conduct out of the ordinary during Mr. Everett's service in the European theater during World War II. Everett possesses no criminal record, and every indication found by our staff is that he is a functioning member of society, to the point that friends, and he apparently had many, recall him as being boring. This would appear, then, to make his conduct while in custody the more confusing. In my initial questioning of Mr. Everett, lasting 3 hours and 48 minutes, he claimed and then disavowed, at varying intervals, to be an instrument of God meting out punishments to the unclean, a scientist employed by the Nazis for research, innocent of his crimes, and receiving instructions from little green men. The initial impression, then, is of a man quite clearly insane. It has become obvious, however, that insanity is merely what Mr. Everett wishes to convey to his interviews with staff. In addition to his ability to operate as a successful member of society for decades, Mr. Everett has displayed a level of intelligence and rational thought belying whatever appearance he is attempting to maintain. Despite carefully crafted questioning protocols, Mr. Everett has indicated in his responses to staff that he is aware that he is not being held at a state of California facility, and that we know that clones of Mildred Record are apparently being born for his deviant purposes. For the purposes of brevity, I will spare the record Mr. Everett's numerous attempts at obfuscation when questioned, and his repeated descriptions of his egghead pal from France as his non-existent accomplice. The answers he has given us are clearly meant purely to amuse himself. To date, we have no actionable intelligence on how SCP-2888 works, what his exact relationship is with it, and how he managed to kill so many people without being suspected by authorities. I will include one description, however, that in my professional opinion is likely to be the closest to whatever it is that Mr. Everett considers truth that we will ever get out of him. I had asked him previously about motive as part of the intake battery, receiving nonsense for my troubles. As the official session was concluding, however, more out of curiosity than scientific inquiry, I asked him again, Informally, directly, I spoke to him. Why do what he did to all those people, all those years? He stopped, and for once I believe I saw sincerity in his face, or at least what I thought to be sincerity. Person, he corrected me. I only killed one girl. What am I, some kind of monster? I only killed one girl all those times, and I got pretty good at it too. He chuckled as they let him out, not in the manner of the mentally retarded or the insane that I have heard many times before, but like an ordinary man, sharing a funny story or watching an episode of Laugh In. I recommend the continued treatment of Mr. Marshall as a man in full control of all his mental facilities. Containment personnel are hereby advised to exercise maximum caution. Signed, Dr. Maud Fletcher, MD. Site 16 Staff Psychiatrist. Addendum 2888-3. Methodology of Person of Interest 2888A Activities. Researcher's Note: while Mr. Everett kept possession of numerous artifacts related to SCP-2888 instances, little in the way of documentary evidence was preserved, presumably as a means of evading any eventual prosecution. Agents did, however, recover a diary belonging to Miss Ramona Jennings. Miss Jennings was an SCP-2888 instance whose remains were recovered from Mr. Everett's residence. One entry in this diary relates directly to Mr. Everett, and is reproduced here for the purposes of this file. March 15, 1963. Dear Diary, I was so afraid when I quit my job at Weinstock's. That horrible man who ran the cosmetics department and the things he would say to me, I couldn't take it anymore. But I didn't know what to do. Betsy was so nice to let me stay with her and the baby, but I could tell that Dick wanted his spare room back. And with me and Mother and those problems, I just couldn't go back home. How I wanted so much to go back to work and move on with my life. But Mr. Clark must have said something to the other department stores. I was so worried. Then Mr. Everett showed up. I know he likes me to call him Marshall, but he'll always be Mr. Everett to me. I had just been rejected over at the Five and Dime, and I tried to hide it, but I knew everyone on the street must have known I was crying. He was at the flower stall buying a bunch of lilies. Most people don't like them so well, but I've always found lilies to be pretty. He turned to me as I was walking by and said that I looked like someone who could use a bunch of flowers. At first, I was horribly startled by the stranger talking to me, but I was so sad and his flowers were so beautiful, I couldn't help but stop. Aren't they for your wife? I asked him. No, I'm all alone, he said. My wife died many years ago. I felt so sad for him then, still buying flowers for someone who's gone. Then he handed me the lilies and offered to buy me lunch. He was so kind, so gentle. I started crying again, there in the middle of the street. He put his coat around me and walked with me to Original Max. As we sat down, he called a waitress over right away and without even asking ordered me a malt and french fries. And as you know, that happens to be my favorite, even if I still feel like a little girl when I order it. I only just met Mr. Everett, but I felt like he knew me so well, like a kind old uncle, just when I needed someone to talk to. I asked him what he was getting, and he said he already ate. So nice of him to take me to lunch, and he wasn't even hungry. As I ate, he told me he worked downtown, and that he'd seen me going back and forth on Capitol the last few days, and if everything was okay with me. I told him no. I was looking for work, and that if someone would let me, I would work very hard and be happy to do it. But no one would let me, and I felt like I would cry all over again. He took his clean napkin and wiped my tears, and told me he owned a company. Not a big one, but it did all right. And how would I like a job in the file room? How would I like a job? I nearly jumped with excitement. I thanked him over and over, promising that he wouldn't regret this one bit, and that I was so happy and that this whole day had turned around for me so suddenly. He just smiled and said happy to do it as he paid the tab. I told him I would start as soon as I could make arrangements with Betsy to find a new room downtown and get out of her hair. He shook his head and said, "Please, you must allow me to help you. I want you to start at Everett Construction lickety-split." He offered to let me stay in a spare bedroom in his house for a couple of days, while he had his secretary check in to find an apartment for me. It was all just perfect. I said, "Thank you, Mr. Everett. I'll go grab my things right now." We got into his big Cadillac, and he came by Betsy's to help me pick up my things. She's been so kind these last few weeks. Funny though, she seemed kind of sore at me when I left, as soon as she saw Mr. Everett parked outside. She just kept looking at him through the kitchen window, like he was a burglar or something. She didn't even come outside when I left. I think she might have thought Mr. Everett was sweet on me. I'll have to explain it all to her when we go out on Sunday. I'm here now in Mr. Everett's house, ready to start my first day back at work tomorrow. I know it's only been a couple of days, but it sure feels like home in here. Poor Mrs. Everett must have been a swell decorator, that's for sure. It's so quiet in Mr. Everett's country house here. It's not so far away, just in the delta a little bit, but none of the cars or the machines from the factory or the boats or any of the big city noises here. It's nice to have things be quiet at night. I thought I'd at least hear the crickets or the frogs though. Well, I'm getting sleepy, and I've got a big day at work tomorrow. I might grab a quick snack before I go to bed, but I don't know yet. I can't say why, but I don't really like the kitchen. Now that it's night, it gives me the willies to go down there. Isn't that silly? Nighty night, Mona. Researcher's note. No subsequent entries are present. Diary was recovered from a locked drawer in Mr. Everett's desk at his construction firm during establishment of containment. Message from Site 16. Hey, you've got the file open. Can you add something in quickly, please? SIGINT reports they've got a hit on SCP-2888. Narendra says she's got a match for an infant born a few weeks ago in Elk Grove somewhere that's pinging the case file genetic data. I'll send the info attachment in a sec. Weird thing is, it's a match for Everett, not Record. There's no one on our watch lists, and the hospital lists someone named Dr. Anna Judah as taking custody. Can't find anyone by that name, or the baby. We're working on it still, but usually that stuff comes up in the first couple hours, tops. Anyway, you've got the template at your workstation. Can you note this as an emerging incident in the file and give Dr. Orison a call? He'll want to hear about this one. Signed, Wilson. Thank you for listening to SCP-2888, Again and Again and Again, by Callanan. If you enjoyed this SCP, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, make sure to follow the link in the description to the SCP Wiki, and vote up the article to support the author and the SCP Wiki as a whole.